Hi, this is Jaya. In this video, we shall see the summary of Conclusion to a Literary History of Canada by Northrop Frye. A Literary History of Canada by Northrop Frye argues that studying Canadian literature requires a shift from viewing evaluation as the end of criticism to understanding the social imagination that drives exploration, settlement, and development. The book explores themes of exploration, settlement, and development, focusing on the social imagination that operates in all cultural life. The authors study a small and low lying cultural development in all dimensions despite the abundance of Canadian writing. The question of why there has been no Canadian writer of classic proportions is complex due to our ignorance of cultural history. Factors such as Puritan inhibitions, pioneer life, cold climate, and years may be important, but not necessarily a negative cause of its merit. Canada's cultural public is driven by its literature, and recognition can sometimes hinder its development. The book also discusses the challenges of entering Canada through the Laurentian movement, which attracts heroic and romantic elements in the Canadian tradition. English Canada's identity is influenced by both British and American cultures, with Canada's attitude towards Britain being more royalist and the United States being smaller and more inclusive. Canadian literature is characterized by tensions in language use, with traditional standard English colliding with Northern American vocabulary and phrasing. The impact of sophisticated and primitive cultures is complex, as Canadian literature has never had a period of organic rhythm. The mystique of Canadism dates back to the pre-Confederation period, with the term Canadian often referring to a Nova Scotian or Blue Nose with a French accent. Canada became a mercantilized colony after the Northwest Passage failed, leading to political resentment and a sense of bewilderment and self-doubt. The country's culture is both in leisure and standards, with pioneer conditions often leading to uncritical work and social unconsciousness. Canadian literature, particularly poetry and fiction, often feels absorbed in meeting a standard, resulting in second-rate academic writing. Canadian sensibility has a sense of nomadic movement, evident in Canadian painting, poetry, and novels. The country's civilization has advanced geometrically across the country, leading to an arrogant abstraction of nature. Canadian cities and villages express an arrogant conquest of nature by an intelligence that does not love it. The Canadian imagination has developed in literature through small, isolated communities surrounded by a physical or psychological frontier and separated from American and British cultural sources. This has resulted in a garrison mentality, a closely knit society with unquestionable moral and social values. Earlier, Canadian writers were certain of their moral values, creating a sub-literary rhetoric that reflected their beliefs. This rhetoric was congenial to the earlier Canadian community, reflecting a highly articulate and argumentative society in 19th century Canada. Canadism was accompanied by an intellectual tendency towards worldviews that avoided dialectic and were theosophical or transcendentalist, leading to the development of jejune chatter about infinity among minor rhetorically minded poets. In the 19th century, Canadian literature was influenced by the belief that nature revealed progress and reason was the duty to accommodate it. This radicalism was undifferentiated, and the Depression introduced a dialectic into Canadian social thought affecting literature. Marxist manifestos assure writers that social significance would bring vitality to their work, and the New Frontier Journal suggested that literature might have to be mixed with other portions not all favorable to the creative process. The belief in literature's inspiration by social significance has persisted even after it no longer aligns with Marxist or other political programs. As Canadian life moved from fortress to metropolis, the garrison mentality changed, becoming more of a revolutionary garrison within a metropolitan society. The Canadian literary mind, established on a basis of history, has a conceptual emphasis in its culture. Canadian writers find their content in the environment and experience, but it takes shape only from what they have read. The separation of subject and object is the primary fact of consciousness for educated Canadian writers who begin their writing with reportage and descriptive thinking. Kannada literature has traditionally been divided into two main tendencies: romance, focusing on Kannada's past, and contemporary realism, addressing common aspects of Kannada and the world. This contrast reflects the social and conceptual approach to literature, with literature being a conscious mythology that creates an autonomous world, and social mythology produced by society to persuade acceptance of existing social values. Popular fiction, particularly in the 19th century, expresses this social mythology. The effect of Canadian popular fiction is a murmuring and echoing literary collective unconsciousness, reflecting imaginative patterns above it. As Canadian society becomes more complex, detachment from its environment becomes easier to assume, often resulting in a split between subject and object. The imaginative writer often finds the identity within the world of literature, discovering something more vital and articulate than a desk. The pastoral myth, the vision of a social ideal, is at the heart of all social mythology in Canada. The theme of Groves, A Search for America, is the narrator's search for a North American pastoral myth in its imaginative form, distinct from its sentimental or socially stereotyped form. The text explores the concept of pastoral myths in Canadian literature, particularly in the context of the concept of Canada and the 19th century mystic of Canadism. The pastoral myth idealizes memory, particularly childhood memory, and has been influential in some of the best Canadian writers. The genuine myth, which starts with identifying subject and object, is the most explicitly mythopic aspect of Canadian literature, centered in poetry rather than fiction. Canadian poetry has a strong tradition of narrative forms such as closet drama, which is impersonal and focuses on tragic and ironic themes. The Canadian environment, which has also influenced the poet with the recurrence of episodes such as shipwrecks, Indian massacres, human sacrifices, and starvation, highlighting the harsh realities of the time. The Canadian literature creates a detachment and autonomous mythology, and society itself produces a corresponding mythology. Canadian literature has a pastoral tradition that combines human life with nature, with sinister elements in nature and the death wish in humans. This fusion of human and nature is central to Canadian writing, with themes of love for the mystery surrounding us. The country's literary critics argue that the country is deeply committed to technological uniformity, but also has deep reservations about the world as an end of life. English Canada's literature has a strong anti-revolutionary bias, influenced by the influx of defeated Tories after the American Revolution. Canadian radicalism developed in opposition to loyalism, similar to the Toryism it opposed. The strong romantic tradition in Canadian literature is largely due to its original conservatism. Studying literature provides a writer's experience and sensitivity, helping them identify the habits and attitudes of the country and leave an imaginary legacy of dignity and high courage. This is a short summary of this essay. If you have anything more to add on to what I've said, please write it in the comment box. Like the video, share it with your friends, and if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe and support. Thank you.